Welcome to MBA 543, St. Francis University. My name is Adam Conrad. I am your instructor, and we will be discussing in this segment, Chapter 11, Determining Customer Needs with a Consultative Questioning Strategy. All right, some of the learning objectives for this chapter is to outline the benefits of the consultative sales process, describe the 4 parts of the need satisfaction model, discuss the use of questions to discover customer needs, describe the importance of active listening and the use of confirmation questions, and selecting the solutions that match customer needs. So again, we talked in last chapter about the 6-step presentation plan, and we focused last time on approach. In this segment, we're going to be talking about needs discovery. So we're going to talk about the consultative sales process, adding value by accurately determining the prospect's needs and selecting an appropriate product or service. So some of the things that come into the consultative sales process and the value that it creates. It is a very customer-centric form of selling. Using consultative problem solving translates into many sources of value for salespeople. So there's more sales closed, increased customer satisfaction, fewer order cancellations, fewer returns, increased repeat business, and increased referrals. Those things are all add value in the process. So we want to talk a little bit about the process guides. So it's really a 4-part process, as shown in figure 11.2. So there's needs discovery, which is with emphasis on questions, selection of the solution, which is a pivot point, need satisfaction through informing, persuading, and or reminding, emphasis on statements, and servicing the sale to help us build repeat business. How much time should we be spending on need discovery? Well, this is going to vary a lot depending on the type of product. A very simple product, maybe not so much, but a very complicated product, like I used to be involved with selling software to hospitals, might be extremely sophisticated. So the sophistication of the product, the selling price of the product, the customer's knowledge of the product or of the industry, the product applications, and lastly, the time they have available for us to do that needs discovery. But the trick to this is we work in a world where there's very complex products and solutions, software, services, and it's extremely important that we gather as much information as we can and do that needs discovery. So the needs discovery sometimes is referred to the needs analysis or needs assessment, begins with pre-call preparation when the salesperson is acquiring background information on the prospect. As noted in Chapter 9, this part of need discovery is also referred to as qualifying the prospect, or qualifying, we like to say. Need discovery, and in some cases the qualification process, continues once the salesperson and the customer are engaged in a real dialogue. Through the process of need discovery, the salesperson establishes two-way communication by asking appropriate questions and listening and acknowledging the customer's responses. Notice the emphasis on listening. These responses usually provide clues to establish why the customer is buying and what their motives are. So again, need discovery, we saw, ask appropriate questions, listen and acknowledge, and figure out what their buying motive is. And so next we're going to be moving on to selection of the solution, matching benefits with buying motives, configure a solution, make appropriate recommendations. And then part of that we'll be doing a need satisfaction presentation. This spin selling, actually I don't think we've got a credit here, but I think it's Neil Rackham, was developed. Spin selling is actually a whole. You can actually buy books on spin selling. There's a whole body of work on spin selling. Are questions that help clarify the exact dimension of the problem. They help the customer evaluate a range of solutions and assist the customer in evaluating the potential outcome of the solution that's implemented. So again, it's Neil Rackham, author of Spin Selling. And it basically gives you situation questions, problem questions, implication questions, and need payoff questions. So it's it's another way of digging into and asking questions about the client and their needs, and doing additional digging into what the dimensions of their problems are. So what are some of the questions that you're going to ask? So survey questions that some of these questions you're going to use in consultative selling. You're going to ask different kinds of questions like survey, probing, confirmation, need satisfaction questions. So the survey questions will involve things like discovering the basic facts about the buyer's problem and what they're using now, what's their existing situation. This is used typically at the beginning of the sale, and you can use some examples like given in the text here. Can you describe the problems you experience traveling to each of the pro golf tournaments? A probing question is designed to uncover pain and clarify the circumstances and implications surrounding the customer's problem. So this is when you need you use this when you need to feel the need to obtain more specific information to fully understand the problem. And so you ask a question like, are the travel problems you have affecting your concentration when you're preparing for the event? And it goes on to follow. You get some confirmation questions in here. You use these during the sales process to verify the accuracy and assure the mutual understanding of the information exchanged by the salesperson and the buyer. And so once you know more about the situation, you can ask, so you think the uncertainty associated with commercial air travel is having some effect on your game? And so you see where this is moving through as you're asking these questions. And you get into the need satisfaction, said this is really the solution. So you're designing, this is really designed to move the sales process toward commitment and action. Now you're trying to form in their head, in the prospect's mind, their movement to action. And like, yeah, I now know I have a problem, and I understand what it does to me and my game, and this is what I'm going to do. I see a solution here, and this is we're just confirming this. So you're changing the focus from a problem to discussing a solution. So you ask the question, with fractional ownership of your own jet, what personal benefits would this bring to your performance in the 30 tournaments you play each year? And so I know a lot of us aren't shopping for fractional jet ownerships right now, but you can see that if you're able to get to the tournaments more readily and not affect your game negatively, what effect that will have. Because you're going to pay for travel nonetheless, but fractional jet ownership is quite a bit more expensive. But if it means you don't have to spend hours waiting in lines, flying to major airports, with fractional jet ownership, you can fly into regional airports. You can fly closer, often probably fly right practically to the golf course. So it makes a big difference. Warren Buffett has even said, he drives a 20-year-old car, but when it comes to travel, he actually owns NetJets, I believe. He actually says when it comes to travel, owning a jet or having a fractional ownership of a jet is a clear advantage in business. Some need discovery questions. So these are survey questions that reveal customer problems. They're probing questions that reveal their pain. There are confirmation questions that reveal the mutual understanding, and the need satisfaction questions reveal the pleasure. So you saw that in the previous example when you talked about fractional jet ownership. And so you can see how you can move down through the process of figuring out what's wrong, what would this solution solve, and can we get them thinking about our solution as the answer. Some general survey questions might be in the data business. Tell me about the new challenges you are facing in the area of data storage. Some specific survey questions might be, how do you feel about installing another server to your system? So there's, again, different ways that you can phrase those questions. Nonetheless, you want to basically come up with some sort of a need discovery worksheet. Obviously, you can reuse some of this and repurpose this depending on the types of clients you're working with, but you'll actually tailor this to your specific clients. So you work up a worksheet, you ask as many open-ended questions as you can, and very few closed-ended questions. Again, the more of this you can do in person and get them talking is very, very helpful. So there's some examples here. Now, as I understand it, you're currently pursuing an internet phone system to offset your high cellular costs. And the customer said, yeah, we're really looking at the fact that these telecom costs are just killing us. It's very expensive. We're looking at solutions. And they said, are you aware that with the system you're currently using, your brokers may have to keep their laptop on in order to make and receive internet calls. And so again, you're asking questions that make them think hard about the fact that it's driving up costs. So what happens if you say your broker is waiting for an important return call and then inadvertently logs off their laptop without a way to roll over the client's return call into a centralized system? And so, again, asking more probing questions so that you can figure out, if we trap this, we actually figured out that this is an area that they're actually losing revenue. Companies will actually respond very rapidly to the fact that not just is it costing them money, but it's also keeping them from getting sales, or there's a revenue loss as a result of it, or there's a revenue leakage as a result of it. So let's see if we understand this. So now you're moving to we, you and me, both understand this. The brokers won't support the system you're considering because it doesn't include instant messaging. And since the brokers would be the primary users of the new system, you're concerned that the system will fail without their support. Is that correct? And so, again, you're working towards a solution that you're both agreeing to, and they're starting to see, oh yeah, I can see where this could actually work for us. Tell me more. What if we could develop a communication system for you that included instant messaging and meet the SEC requirements? What positive impact would that have on your situation? So now they're starting to think about, geez, I can fix some of my cellular and telecom costs, plus I can increase my compliance and make my internal customer happier. So they start really thinking about, tell me more about this. How is this going to work, and what's this look like? Becomes a key to, you see how this is a key to moving them down through the process with a questioning process, right? So it's key that having some open and closed questions can help. Obviously, more open-ended questions are going to be better. And again, this is something you want to have a dialogue with. You don't want to just hand them this. Obviously, this is something you want to have as a questionnaire that you're working in person. And it's important that you listen to their answers and ask more questions as a result of what they're saying, not just, I've got this cookie cutter worksheet and I'm going to fill it out, and when I'm done, I can go get lunch. That comes back to active listening. So to fully understand the customer, we must listen closely and acknowledge every response. Active listening is the process of sending back to the prospect what you as a listener think the person meant, in terms both in terms of content and feelings. So it's really important that you say, look, if I understand what I hear you saying, I think you mean, and by restating it, not just parroting what they're saying, but making sure that you understand clearly the context of what they're saying is really important. Active listening skills can be learned by anybody that wants to learn. This is something that's taught, and I have always said that sales is something that can be taught. There are some elements to sales where it seems like you're a born salesperson, but literally, I think you're molded as a salesperson depending on your upbringing and your environment. I really think that anybody can sell. You just have to really, like this, practice active listening and listening to people. One of my most successful salespeople in real estate was an ex-police detective. You would not normally say ex-police detective, top salesperson, right? You wouldn't normally equate those two. But this is why. An active listener, somebody who's used to listening and asks questions and pays full attention to people whenever they're talking, has a huge advantage in real estate. A lot of folks, again, like to talk all the time, or like to talk about themselves, but if you're an active listener and you can focus your full attention, paraphrase the customer's meaning and take notes, you've got very, very powerful information that you can use to help your client. And more people need to listen. So there's another discussion topic here, which I'll turn into a discussion item for one of the chapters, one of the weeks. And the discussion in this case is, in today's world of 24/7 constant digital contact, do you struggle to focus your attention? And what actions could you take to improve your ability to focus attention and listen actively? Boy, that's a loaded one. So we'll make that a discussion topic. Time used during the consultative sales process, sales presentation. So this shows your allocation or your time allotment that you use. And notice in terms of involvement, the prospect assumes a greater role during the need discovery rate stage. So the time used during the consultative sales process increases for the prospect as the process continues. So as we move on through the different stages of the sales presentation, the salesperson actually is obviously very involved. The prospect assumes a greater role during the need discovery stage. As the salesperson begins the product selection process, the prospect's involvement decreases. During the need satisfaction stage, the salesperson is doing more of the talking, but note that the prospect is never excluded totally. So you see that the salesperson is getting more involved, prospect's getting a little bit less involved as we move through the process. Because at first we needed a lot of their time to get that need discovery accomplished, and then a little bit of decrease in terms of the selection of the product. Creating value and building a partnering relationship. So need discovery and product selection activities are the first step in creating value and building a partnership with your customer. This figure summarizes the key concepts that must be addressed during the planning and execution process. These planning and execution activities will impact your ability to create customer value and build a partnering relationship. So you can see here, review in the strategic planning for the need discovery and product selection. You review the consultative sales presentation model, review existing prospect information, pre-plan your questions, review the product options, and plan to use time wisely. And then actions taken during the need discovery and product selection process involve reestablishing the relationship if appropriate, ask appropriate questions, record the customer's responses, acknowledge and summarize the customer needs, select and recommend appropriate product solutions. So in review of this Chapter 11, we've outlined the benefits of the consultative sales process. We've described the 4 parts of the need satisfaction model, discussed the use of questions to discover customer needs, described the importance of active listening and the use of confirmation questions, and selected solutions that match customer needs. That concludes Chapter 11.